Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my warm greetings to you. Let me begin by thanking the leadership of the ACP for giving me this opportunity. I'm sorry that I'm not with you in person, but I certainly value this opportunity to say a few words virtually from a distance. I wish I had been there. I had every intentions of being there, but I had a few conflicts in my schedule which I just could not change. I'm particularly happy that the MetroCon event this year is focusing on green world and smart living. And I think the two go together, because if we are smart as a species, as human society, then we would make sure that we live in a manner that is green and that ensures the sustainability of all the ecosystems on this planet. The truth is that we are living in a situation where the risks from the impacts of climate change, just to take an example, are going to become progressively worse. And that means very bad news, not only for us in this generation, but particularly for generations yet to come. I'd like to bring you up to date from what science has told us so far. I had the privilege of chairing the IPCC for 13 years, from 2002 to 2015. This is the premier body that brings out a scientific assessment of climate change on a regular basis and on all aspects of climate change. And it was in the course of this period that I was chairman. I had the privilege of receiving the Nobel Peace Prize on behalf of the panel in 2007. The truth is that we have increased the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere from about 280 parts per million at the time of industrialization to well over 400 parts per million today. And this has acted like a greenhouse, and that's why the term greenhouse gases or the greenhouse effect as far as the earth is concerned. And this is precisely what has led to a change in the climate, because a lot of heat that normally would have escaped outside to outer space is now retained, and as a result we are creating a force that brings about an increase in temperature on the surface of the earth, both on land and in water. Now the result of this is not merely a smooth and steady increase in temperatures, but what this really leads to is a complete disruption of the climate system. It is for this reason that we are seeing so many more extreme events today. These are far more frequent and far more intense. You are aware of what Hurricane Harvey did in the city of Houston and in the surrounding areas. You're also aware of so many other hurricanes which are now showing much greater ferocity, much greater capacity for damage than was the case, let's say, 20 years ago. And this, may I say, is largely because these hurricanes are now picking up much greater quantities of moisture and therefore dumping much larger quantities of water, thereby causing much greater harm. You've seen the devastation that was carried out by Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. That island has still not recovered from the enormous damage that took place. Now, what I'd like to submit is that solutions are within our reach. Of course, we can adapt to the impacts of climate change, and we must adapt to these impacts because there's already a commitment of climate change on account of the increased concentration of greenhouse gases in the past. However, what I want to emphasize is that adaptation alone is not going to solve the problem, because we will soon see these impacts of climate change crossing certain thresholds that would certainly be far beyond our capacity and our capabilities and even the technological opportunities that we have to bring about an improvement in the system. So the answer lies in mitigating the emissions of greenhouse gases. More recently, the IPCC has brought out a special report on 1.5 degrees Celsius as the limit, as against 2 degrees Celsius, which is the limit that has been accepted in the Paris Agreement on climate change. However, the Paris Agreement did say that the science and the impacts related to 1.5 degrees Celsius will be examined in due course, and then the world will decide whether we accept 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees Celsius as the target for the year 2100. Well, on the basis of this report, let me say that it is now absolutely clear that the world will have to accept 1.5 degrees Celsius, because there's a huge difference between the impacts and the risks associated with them, with, let's say, the 2 degree limit versus the 1.5 degree limit. But to ensure that we don't cross the 1.5 degree limit, we have to work much harder. And the truth is that we would now have to make sure that emissions of greenhouse gases and carbon dioxide in particular peak no later than 2020. This is something that we had indicated in the 4th assessment report of the IPCC, which was released in 2007. However, now it's become much clearer, and the findings of the IPCC give us a robust basis for accepting this particular limit. And this means that we have to move very quickly to a decarbonized energy system. I'm happy to see that in Texas, purely on the basis of good economics, the state is now the largest producer of wind energy of all the states in the US. And this, I think, is particularly significant because Texas is the heart of the hydrocarbons industry, of the fossil fuels industry. So what I would like to submit is that the prospects for using renewable energy are so bright today that it would be very stupid on our part as a species to turn away from this opportunity that is staring us in the face now. I would like to submit that all you distinguished ladies and gentlemen who are gathered here today can really make a lot of difference by ensuring that we adopt lifestyles that are energy efficient, that we move towards greater use of renewable energy, that we also make sure that the use of energy, whether it's in transport, industry, in our households, is made far more efficient than we have been accustomed to in the past. So the point I'd like to make is that we are now at a cusp. We have an opportunity to really bring about a substantial change and ensure that the unsustainable pattern of living that we have been pursuing is transformed into something that gives us sustainability in the future and for the benefit of our children and their children. Now, I want to end by saying something purely on a personal note. I first went to China in 1981, and I've been there so many times since. I'm very happy to see that the leadership of China and the people of China are now trying very hard to improve the environment, and they're also trying to decarbonize the energy system. Since the ACP consists of people who are originally from China, you have a unique opportunity to bring the experiences of China to the US, to bring commercial opportunities from China to the US, and see that the US moves very rapidly towards a pattern of sustainability. Some will say, of course, the federal government has moved in a totally different direction. But I think the beauty of the democratic and federal system in the US lies in the fact that at the local level, in towns, cities, states, you can do so much that you don't necessarily have to rely on policy directions or support from Washington, DC. Take the case of California, which is far more energy efficient than the rest of the world and the rest of the country. I would at least say the rest of the developed world. So I think all of us as stakeholders in the future whether we are working in industry or academia or as individual professionals, can make a lot of difference to the world and make sure that we leave behind a planet that our descendants feel grateful that we made an effort to improve over a period of time. Mahatma Gandhi used to say, be the change you want to see in the world. And I think each one of us can be that change so that we have a better world in the future. I hope you have a wonderful get-together today, and I'm so sorry that I'm not there with you. I hope in the future the leadership of the ACP regards it as a privilege for me and an opportunity to be in your midst, when I hope I can talk about things that give us much greater hope and confidence than what I'm trying to tell you. I am an optimist. I have every little bit of hope, and I'm working with the youth of the world in what is called the POP movement, Protect Our Planet, and I can tell you the response is overwhelming. And I would like to see that the ACP takes an initiative to see that the POP movement is introduced in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And if you decide to do so, it would be my privilege to join hands with you and make sure that we leave behind a better world for our children and generations yet to come. So thank you very much. Shia Shia.